Hello, and welcome to our Bitesize webinar, taking a deeper look at the China and East Asia markets, highlighting their importance to Scotland's visitor economy and what opportunities they could present for your business. I'm Gillian Learmouth. I'm the Senior Market Development Manager, managing the Asia Pacific and Middle East region. In today's session, I'll predominantly focus on the China market, given that's our largest Asian market. However, I will also touch on Japan and South Korea. It's important to highlight international tourism remains incredibly important to Scotland. Despite continued global economic uncertainty and the impacts of the Middle East conflict, positive consumer sentiment and demand for Scotland remains high. Whilst we're still to receive the confirmed data for 2025, early indications show growth in visitor numbers from Scotland's key international markets, including China. In 2024, it was encouraging to see within the International Passenger Survey, or IPS data, Scotland remained the top performing country out of all the UK nations, with both visitor numbers and spend showing growth. Here you can see the top 4 long-haul international markets for Scotland in 2024. This includes US, Australia, Canada, and China. China remains the largest global market for outbound travel, presenting a huge opportunity for Scotland. We're already a popular destination for this market. Therefore, by developing our engagement and presence in China, we hope to see continued growth of Chinese visitors coming to Scotland. As we know, China was the last international market to return post-COVID, with it opening much later than most international markets. So it has been encouraging to see both visits and expenditure continue to rise. This is also reflected in the data we're receiving from UK visa and immigration services. Chinese visitors usually experience Scotland as part of a wider UK visit, with around 9% of UK visits including a trip to Scotland. This presents a great opportunity and potential for significant growth through the development of products and experiences that appeal to this audience. Who are our Chinese visitors? In the previous slide, we saw how China compared to other long-haul destinations. However, as you can see here, we have more detailed overview from the 2024 IPS stats for Chinese visitors travelling direct into Scotland. The 2025 IPS stats are still pending, but as you can see, the figures we saw in 2024 were very encouraging. It's also important to remind you that this IPS data counts visitors travelling direct into Scotland and does not account for Chinese visitors who travel into the UK via other hubs, such as London or Manchester, and then on to Scotland via other means, such as a tour or rail, for example. This leads us to believe that the actual numbers of Chinese visitors to Scotland will be significantly higher. Through our Insight department, we continue to look at a range of insights and data to help us build our understanding. So with that in mind, I'm sure it will come as no shock that 97% of Chinese visitors travel direct to Scotland by air. Scotland continues to benefit from great connectivity and direct access from China, with Hainan Airlines now flying year-round from Beijing to Edinburgh, and other major airlines such as Emirates flying in daily to Scotland from other Chinese cities. The Chinese visitor profile remains relatively consistent in terms of length of stay and key motivators. However, through our insights and conversations with key travel trade partners such as tour operators and OTAs, we are seeing some shifts in terms of how Chinese visitors are travelling, which I'll come on to talk about later in the session. We have seen an increase in the length of stay in Scotland, and through our work with key travel partners are seeing an increase in mono Scotland or Scotland only trips, proving to be very popular. Visitors tend to stay on average around 6 nights, with a healthy average spend of approximately £733 per person. We know that most Chinese visitors will likely visit Edinburgh, Glasgow and the Highlands. However, as they travel to these areas, they are increasingly keen to explore other parts of Scotland along the way. The number of visits classified under Visiting Friends and Relatives, or VFR, segment is stronger than you would perhaps expect, driven by families travelling to see their relatives studying or working here in Scotland. Whilst the majority of visitors from this market come between July and September, we are seeing an increase in visitors coming in the shoulder season, which presents an opportunity to encourage more visits at off-peak times. Scotland's scenery and landscapes, unique history and culture remain important motivators for visits, with Chinese visitors seeking out quality time in nature, immersing themselves in local cultures, and taking the opportunity to get away from it all. Developing experiences and messaging to enhance their visits could be beneficial when targeting these visitors. It's also important to understand the way in which the China market book their travel and how they are inspired. A significant proportion of this audience use some sort of travel operator. 58% of visitors book using an OTA and 34% using an offline tour operator. Popular OTAs in Asian markets include Ctrip, the biggest in China, Fliggy, Klook, and Veltra. Use of digital platforms such as OTAs, social media, and travel review sites are also key at the inspiration, planning, and booking stages. Having engaging digital content and working with travel trade are key considerations when thinking about the Chinese market. We have a wealth of information and resources to support you with advice on how to work with travel trade and build your digital skills, which can be found on our Business Support Hub. As I mentioned in the previous slide, the importance of travel trade to Chinese visitors when planning and booking a trip to Scotland remains high. I wanted to highlight a few other points when thinking about the China market. Chinese visitors have a shorter booking period than a number of other long-haul markets. For the majority of visitors, this is related to the visa application process. Visitors can only apply for their visa 3 months ahead of their planned trip. And from there, almost half of the bookings are then made around 1 month out from their departure dates. That said, the visa process also presents a great opportunity for repeat travel, as successful applicants are then granted 24 months as standard. I mentioned that most will travel within summer season. However, Golden Week holidays, particularly in February around Chinese New Year time, and October when Chinese people tend to take longer overseas trips, are also popular travel periods. We've also seen a real increase in inquiries and trips for Spring Golden Week, which is in May. So we really believe strongly that these Golden Week travel periods present a great opportunity for us to encourage visitors to come out with peak season. Traditionally, Chinese visitors were most likely to travel as part of a larger group. However, post-COVID, whilst we're still seeing a significant number of Chinese travellers joining these larger group tours, we've also seen a shift from travelling in this way. Increased bookings from smaller group sizes is becoming increasingly popular, which sees around 74% of visitors travelling with their partner or spouse and in smaller family groups. Confidence in more independent travel from a younger demographic of Chinese travellers has also brought an increase in FIT visitors from this market. These visitors tend to be digitally inspired and most likely to use OTA platforms to book their trip. They seek out experiences which provide them unique and immersive experiences. The FIT travellers come with a higher level of spend than these traditional large group travellers. Whilst we're seeing an increase in the younger demographics, we're also seeing the silver-haired demographic, which continues to demonstrate strong growth and opportunity. With a slightly younger retirement age in China, these travellers tend to have more time and disposable income. They still rely heavily on tour operators and travel agents, but are becoming more digitally savvy and will be influenced by social media as well as friends and family. They're also not tied to any travel at certain times of the year, so potential to encourage them to come in these Golden Week periods or out with peak season presents a great opportunity. I've already touched on some of the motivators that drive Chinese visitors to Scotland, but I wanted to share a bit more about some of the trends we're seeing. I mentioned being motivated by our beautiful landscapes and nature. Alongside this, we're also seeing growing interest and participation for soft adventure type experiences such as walking or wildlife watching. Sustainability awareness within the China market itself has also grown significantly with strong ambitions and targets to address the climate crisis. We are seeing this reflected with an interest in more sustainable and responsible tourism experiences. Along with the rise of visitors travelling in smaller groups and family units, we're also seeing this demand for more interactive cultural experiences, as well as a strong growing interest in our agri-tourism offering. These high-spending visitors are also looking for those more hands-on, immersive type experiences provided by our industry. For example, make your own or bottle your own, or perhaps a behind the scenes experience is proving to be incredibly popular. So as you start to think about how you could develop your offering to suit Chinese visitors, I wanted to highlight a few more points that you might want to consider. Whilst it's not expected, by providing any bilingual information or support, a visitor will feel their experience has been very enhanced. Making the most of any famous connections can also set you apart. Consider any royal, historical, or film and TV connections you or the local area might offer to capture their imagination. Use of digital technology is so important to this market, so Wi-Fi connection will often be the first thing they ask about. And important, share your green credentials. Tell them the story about how you're taking steps to become more sustainable. I've covered quite a lot about the China market, but given the size of importance of this market, we felt that was important. But I just wanted to also touch on some key points relating to Japan and South Korea. Visitor numbers for these markets are lower than those coming from China. However, we still see a real keen interest from these markets, and we do still carry out some activities in partnership with travel operators and strategic partners such as Visit Britain. There are a number of similarities across all Asian markets, however, a few points to pull out here. Across both the Japan and South Korea markets, similar to the China markets, visitors will also take in Scotland as part of a longer UK-wide trip. We see a real high repeat propensity from Japanese visitors, with 68% of Japanese tourists being repeat visitors to the UK. The Japanese market also favour more traditional booking methods, with around 85% using a high street travel agent, whereas in South Korea, the market has seen a shift towards OTA bookings. Both markets tend to bring higher spending visitors, which is reflected in the types of experiences they seek out. For example, they look for those more high-end niche experiences. And no surprise, but golf remains a key motivator, particularly for the Korean market. So just to finish off, a few more thoughts to leave you with. As you consider your next steps, whether that be starting to work with travel trade, or how you reach new markets, or shaping your pricing to suit, our Visit Scotland Business Support Hub can help guide you. We'll add a link to our Business Support Hub in the chat here today and when we share the slides. From what you've heard today, I hope you'll agree these markets offer great potential for future growth, as well as regional and seasonal spread opportunities. I hope that by providing a welcoming and positive experience, we really hope that we can encourage new visitors, repeat visits and longer stays from the Asian markets. We'll continue to seize every opportunity to keep Scotland top of mind for China, Japanese and South Korean visitors. Thank you.